Wolfson Children's. For any child that needs care, we are always here. Visit wolfsonchildrens.com. The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and the WJCT News team.
Year's Cultural Council Awards. Join the conversation. Give us a call on air at 904-549-2937 or head to firstcoastconnect.org to find all the ways.
News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. The Commerce Department says the U.S. gross domestic product grew 2% between January and March of this year. That's quarterly growth about 0.5% stronger than in the last quarter of last year. Consumer spending is a highlight in this latest report, but the outlook is more uncertain after the war in Iran began. Prices are more expensive now, especially for gas. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth will testify before the Senate Armed Services Committee this morning, and the war on Iran is expected to be the main topic. Yesterday, Hegseth spoke to a House panel and said the biggest adversary the U.S. faces is not Iran's military, but the defeatist words of Democrats and some Republican lawmakers. Officials say the initial cost of the war is $25 billion, but skeptics say that's too low. President Trump held a rare phone call yesterday with Russian President Vladimir Putin. NPR's Charles Maines reports Russia says the talks focused heavily on current global conflicts in Europe and the Middle East.
According to Kremlin advisor Yuri Ushakov, Putin weighed in on the U.S. and Israel's war against Russia's ally Iran, saying he supported Trump's recent decision to prolong a ceasefire with Tehran. Yet that Russian advice did not apply closer to home. After Trump suggested a deal to end the war in Ukraine was within reach, Putin insisted Kyiv was prolonging the conflict by failing to accept Russian territorial demands. Putin did propose a temporary ceasefire when both Russia and Ukraine hold events commemorating the end of World War II in early May. Yet Putin said Russian troops would ultimately achieve their objectives in Ukraine, a position Putin has held since he ordered the full-scale invasion more than 4 years ago. Charles Maines, NPR News.
Iran's supreme leader has issued a written statement today. Mojtaba Khamenei says Iran will protect its nuclear and missile capabilities. The U.S. Supreme Court has reinterpreted a key provision of the Voting Rights Act. It says Louisiana's congressional map is unconstitutional because part of it was redrawn for racial reasons. This could have implications for some majority black districts in the South, but NPR's Sam Greenglass reports the effect on this year's midterm elections isn't clear.
Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act resulted in the creation of more than a dozen protected majority black districts in the South. In ruling Louisiana's congressional map an unconstitutional racial gerrymander, the court opened the door for GOP-led states to eliminate districts drawn to be majority black. Terry Sewell is a Democratic congresswoman from Alabama.
It will pave the way for the greatest reduction in representation for black and minority voters since the years following Reconstruction.
Some Republicans are calling on legislatures to pass new maps now, but that will be tricky given that primaries are soon in some states. Sam Greenglass, NPR News, Washington.
You're listening to NPR.
Good morning. You're listening to WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. I'm Stephen Ponson. It is 9:04. Feeding Northeast Florida has a new community kitchen and culinary center at its Northwest Jacksonville headquarters. The new 3,000-square-foot state-of-the-art facility, unveiled yesterday, supported by Florida Blue, allows the nonprofit to teach its clients how to turn fresh ingredients into meals for those who need them most. Feeding Northeast Florida serves 12 counties in Northeast and North Central Florida, helping more than 310,000 people. Florida is at the bottom of the list for teacher pay nationwide for the third consecutive year, according to a report from the National Education Association. Natalie LaRoche-Pietri has more.
The average teacher salary in Florida public schools was $56,600 in 2025, compared to the national average of $74,400. President of Florida Education Association Andrew Spar tells WLRN the low pay makes retention challenging.
Every time you have that turnover, students lose out.
Teacher salaries also haven't grown on par with inflation, the report showed.
Average teacher pay in Florida has only gone up about 3% over the last few years. And when you look at that compared to inflation, you wonder why teachers are leaving, because you can't keep up with the cost of goods.
The report also found teachers earn 24% more on average in states with collective bargaining groups. I'm Natalie LaRoche-Pietri in Weston.
Temperatures reach the low to mid-80s today with scattered showers this afternoon and evening.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the University at Buffalo, where innovative AI degrees are dedicated to putting students at the forefront of realizing AI for good. More at buffalo.edu/NPR. This is NPR.
Team dominated in their inaugural soccer season. We talked to them ahead of their final home game about the playoff challenge ahead. Later in the program, a Jacksonville artist with a global perspective trains his eye on man-made and natural disasters. And the Cultural Council unveils its annual Arts Awards. We preview next weekend's ceremony with one of this year's honorees. But first, Sporting Club Jacksonville Women's Soccer is the first expansion team in the nascent Gainsbridge Super League to make the playoffs. It's a testament to the skill of my guests today. Here to talk about it, we're joined by head coach Stacey Balaam. Stacey, good morning.
Good morning.
Also joined by Sporting Jack's star defender Georgia Brown. Good morning.
Morning.
And the team's defender turned striker Paige Kenton. Good morning, Paige.
Good morning.
So this is the first season, the team's first season with this expansion USL team. And it's, as we mentioned, the first ever professional sports team in Jacksonville for any sport in women's professional sports. So first of all, Stacey, what does it feel like to kind of carry the mantle of that obligation, to put it in those terms? I mean, it is something that a lot of eyes are on. A lot of people are looking at this team, its fortunes, its future, and a lot of that rests on you.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of excitement around the community when we launched it, when we launched the club and announced that the first women's professional team was coming to Jacksonville, to put the team together and to try and get them to be a cohesive team from the start was really important for us, because they were coming from all different environments, all different backgrounds, all different ages. They'd obviously represented their college environments, and these two in particular, Paige and Georgia, had fantastic careers in their college environments, but that doesn't always translate to the professional setting. So we had to make sure that we had the right personalities in place, and we had to make sure that we had the right pieces in place to form a great team. And then it was step by step in terms of the process and trying to build a great team to be able to compete in this league. And it's a very, very competitive league. And they've been incredible. We started in August. We're now, into April, and season ends in May. But they have grown throughout the year, and they are, just come together as an incredible group.
What are some strategies you use when it comes to team building, when you've got all these disparate folks coming from different countries, different places, very different backgrounds?
Yeah, I mean, they have to be athletically capable to play in this league. They have to be technically capable to play in this league. They've got to have the right personalities, the right mentalities to be able to live the professional lifestyle. It is a long season, like I mentioned, and so they have to be consistent in how they deliver performances. But it takes a lot in terms of being a professional athlete, and the commitment and the determination and the desire, and being able to get up and go to work every day, just giving it your all, but enjoying it at the same time. I think that's really, really important, and that's the environment that we wanted to create from the start, is to make it educational for them and enjoyable.
Georgia, when we were talking just before the program about how you've been working with the Scotland women's team, you're aiming for the World Cup in 2027. There's qualifying happening right now. And so you have also that on your plate. But what is different about playing professional level soccer, women's soccer, as opposed to playing at the college level? You played at Hofstra, you played
at the University of South Florida.
University of South Florida as well. So but I'm interested to know how that transition was for you and how this feels different.
I mean, I think the main thing is just that there's a much higher standard and expectation from you. I think you can get away with a few things in college, and you see players do that. And I think in the professional level, it just goes up one extra notch. And the things that are almost seen as exceptional in the college level are now the standard at the professional level. So it's about, when you come to that next level, it's about trying to push that and raise your standards every day, so that becomes your norm. And then now you can just keep pushing on from there.
You were one of the first 2 people signed to this team. And I wonder if that gives you a sense of ownership or of obligation. I kind of mentioned with Stacey, but in terms of leading that team or helping direct the mood of that team or the vibe that kind of governs you, how have you approached that, being one of the foundational team members?
I mean, I think we have a very good group in general with a lot of strong leaders in it. So I think that comes from the group as a whole rather than just myself. But I think for me as well, being one, I played Summer League in Jacksonville. So being one of the first, I think it's important for me to show the younger girls in the academy as well that there is a pathway to be able to come through now. And you can use that pathway to get to where we are. And I like to still engage a lot with the community and go out and help coach the younger girls and be a part of that and show that we are just one of them, and I was just like them when I was their age. So that's an important thing for me, being one of the first players.
Yeah, the bringing the younger girls along is a key part of this, Paige. There's a lot of young soccer players in this community. I know that most of them are huge fans of the team, and so that must be fun. You also, I'm sure, remember being that age and looking up to the big girls. What is it that you try to share with them when you're playing at this level? What do you want them to know about this level of competition, and what do you think you represent to them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the things I try to display is just that it's still fun at this level. They have so much fun when they're younger, and I think that's something we can take from them. So trying to be a friendly face, show that the game's still fun, even at such a high level. I think that keeps them engaged and excited about it. But it's amazing to see them come out to the games. We sign a lot of autographs with a lot of the young players in this area. And it's just great to see their joy and support. It's definitely something unique about playing professionally.
You're sort of regarded as the scholar of the team. You graduated magna cum laude in neuroscience, no less. And so you are now, doing this level of soccer. How does that interact with your career goals? What are you planning in the future? And do you have to kind of just stay focused on the game right now, as opposed to maybe some of those other academic priorities you used to have?
Definitely not how I thought I would use my degree, but I think this plays into my career path super well. It's something really unique that I get to say I did, and I still can focus on the next part of my career journey. So right now I'm studying for the LSAT. The way our job is structured, it's very easy to have time to study and schedule that studying. So at some point in the future, a couple years away at least, I can go to law school and kind of continue from there. But this has been a great little break between school and has given me a good job.
You also had to flip-flop roles, right? You came here as a defender and now you're a striker. So what's how does that mess with your head at all? Is it a different approach to the game that you have to drill down in? And what did that mean to you to have that opportunity to change where you were playing?
100%. I think I have two different personalities when I play the different positions, but I got switched to the back line in college and kind of thought that was it for playing up top. And when I came here, played most of preseason in the back line, was trying to get in my rhythm with that, and just took one practice of 5v5, and, we kind of thought we might try this. So,
and what's happening at that game where people are like, maybe we should think about having her up front?
My team
decision.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that Paige was a versatile player.
Decision.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that Paige was a versatile player when we recruited her, and we didn't realize how much talent she had as a forward until a couple of practices in, and she started to show some tendencies of what she could do as a forward as opposed to a defender. So there were games where she had to switch roles, and she was playing at the back for a little bit, and then we would put her up top, and now she's a mainstay. She's kept her place as a forward and leading the league in multiple categories, and she's one of the best right now in the league for what she does up there.
And 10 goals so far this season?
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. And so talk about the playoffs a little bit. Explain to people, I mean, we mentioned that your final home game is this weekend at Hodges Stadium where you all play, but you have been in the playoffs essentially for a month now, essentially. What got you there? How big does your point differential remain with the other teams? And what does that mean in terms of like where you might play or what you might be seated?
So our initial goal when we got together as a team back in July in preseason was to make playoffs. That was our first target. And we said as an expansion team, new team in the league, this is going to be very difficult, but the top 4 teams in the league make playoffs.
And
that
this
was
is
our target.
How many teams are in the league?
9.
Okay.
So that was our target. And I think we had 6 games left to play of regular season, and we clinched. And we were at the top. And so we were not expecting to be in that particular position at that point in the season when we clinched. But again, I'm not surprised with this group and how far they've come as a whole. And so we have one remaining home game for the regular season on Sunday, 5:00 at Hodges, and then 2 away games to finish up the regular season before we hit playoffs. And then at that point, it is semi-final, final situation.
But those dates are not set yet for those final and semi-final?
Yeah, the semi-final dates are the weekend of 23rd, 24th.
Okay.
We are still not sure if we are hosting. We need to get some more points to be able to clinch either first or second spot, which will be the host spot.
Okay. If you're just joining us, we're talking to Sporting Club Jacksonville women's soccer coach Stacey Balaam, star defender Georgia Brown, and forward Paige Kenton ahead of the team's final game before the playoffs begin. You can join the conversation on air by calling 904-549-2937, or you can go to firstcoastconnect.org to leave a comment. Georgia, in terms of getting that home seed, I'm guessing that would be something really meaningful for the team to be able to play. What kind of support have you gotten from the Ultras, from the supporters in Jacksonville, from the hometown crowd?
We've had great support. The Ultras are a great time. I mean, I think a lot of parents have come. I think Paige's parents have come to a few games, and they have a little tailgate before the game as well. So they bring good energy when they get there. And the other fans as well. We have a few of the academy players come out. All the families of our players have come out, pretty much a lot of them. So that's also a great support. And it's just nice being at home, you know, your environment. I mean, I think we do well on the road as well, to be honest. I think whatever hand we get dealt, we'll be able to deal with. But yeah, it's always nice to have that home advantage and have our home crowd supporting us.
And you've had these really hot streaks where you had like a 7-game winning streak for a period until very recently. And there had been this long period where you hadn't given up more than a single goal in a game since like October or something. And so how does your defense plot and work to sort of keep the momentum on that front and to really be oriented towards preventing scoring and making sure that you've got a really solid back line there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a great group that's a very resilient group that like we're willing to work for each other. And when we have lost a game, we've even tied, I think we're at the point where even if we tie a game, we're very much disappointed with that result. We want to win every game at this point. So I think that's always in the back of our minds, and we've built a good relationships on the field. I think at the start we were conceding quite a lot of goals, and honestly, that's not been a good thing. But like I think that's taught us a lot of lessons that we can now bring into the later parts of the season. And I think we as a back line have got a good relationship with each other, and the lines in front of us. I think we've built those relationships throughout the season as well, in the communication and what we know we can expect of each other and what we can demand of each other. I think we have a good relationship in that aspect. So, yeah, I think we just continue building. Even if we only concede 1 or 0 goals a game, I think we're also a group that's willing to learn as well. So we can use moments in the game. We all come in for video, and we can try and learn as much as we can from each game to build and build, so we get better game after game.
And what's that relationship about? Is that mostly communication? Is it mostly trust? Is it just sort of familiarity with the style of play? How do you build that?
A bit of everything. We have a very good group in terms of we're all very close off of the field, which I think helps because then we know how we can talk to each other and how we can get a response from each other, not just off the field, but on the field as well. And I think that's important. And obviously, the more you play with each other, the more you understand how they like the balls played to them, what positions they like to get into, what their strengths are. So as long as we can find ways to help capitalize on those strengths, I think that's most important.
Stacey, have there been any habits you've had to try to break your team of, or ones that you've really worked to try to reinforce?
I mean, the biggest thing is building relationships on the field. And like Georgia alluded to, they're very close off the field. So it helps the chemistry on the field. I think we just realized how competitive the league was at the beginning of the season and how difficult it was to try and keep shutouts, to not allow opponents opportunities. But the defending starts from the front. And so, we rely on our forwards, like Paige, to start that process of defending for us. And then we've got to be organised, and we have to make sure that there's great communication and great cohesiveness on the field for us to be able to understand each other and what we're doing. We always say stay compact as a defensive group. So we're not allowing gaps. We're not allowing seams for teams to be able to break through. And we've got to be really resilient in the way we do that. And it takes a lot of focus. It takes a lot of hard work to defend. But we also have a style of play where we like to defend with the ball. So the biggest thing for us is we're a possession team. If we have the ball, the other team's not scoring. And so a big part of our defending is actually keeping the ball ourselves.
Yeah. Interesting. And talking about the defense starting at the top, Paige, people who are watching our live stream will have been seeing some of your goal handiwork, but you are you've got a lot of speed. And so you're able to really, go capture that ball when it's free. You are also very good at scoring, as we mentioned. All of that can make you a little bit of a target on the field. And that is also, I think, something that you're known for, is people do sometimes gun for you a little bit when you're out there. So how do you train for that? How do you prepare for that mentally? How do you protect yourself? This is a sport where a lot of people, and particularly women's soccer is known for, head injuries. I mean, so how do you protect yourself? How do you make sure that your defensive work isn't, putting you in peril?
Yeah, I will say, I think in practice we get really competitive. So that definitely prepares me for the games. I have Georgia going up against me at practice. So I play against some of the best defenders in the league every day. But I think, it's doing all the right things off the field, working with our amazing support staff, athletic trainers, strength and performance people to keep my body ready for the challenges of the game. But I love the contact. I think I feed off of defenders getting pretty physical. That's the game I'd prefer. So I don't mind them doing a little bit of that.
Yeah, because you can give it as good as you get. Yeah. What are you doing? Anything special personally to prepare for either this last game, which must be kind of exciting in and of itself to be the final chapter in the home regular season, but what are you doing to prepare mentally or physically for the playoff season?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to stay consistent in the way I prepare, but also I've talked to the coaches a bit about this too, trying to find more ways to just kind of diversify how I play. Teams are catching on to what I like to do, and that makes sense for the end of the season, but finding ways to get on the ball more, finding ways to be a little bit more dangerous. So I'm trying to kind of add that into my preparation and focus on ways I can help the team out a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm curious about that because when you've got 9 teams in a league, you do start to really get to know the other players. Sometimes you may have played with them already in, other capacities in college or whatever, but these are players that are also top level. They're also watching tape. They do get to know some of your strategies, but you also get to know theirs. And so when you're going into a game like this, Georgia, what are you thinking about? Are you thinking about individual opponent teammates? Are you preparing for them on a specifically individual level?
I mean, we obviously prepare, like we do our scouting report each week, and we see what the team has done and what their tendencies are. But I think for myself individually, I obviously am aware of what the other players are doing, but the thing I can control is myself as well. So, like, I try to, leading up to in the week, obviously I listen to like what the tendencies are of the other strikers and focus on that. But I would say the day before the game, I try to just focus on myself and like what I can control. And as long as I do what I can do best, then hopefully I can deal with whatever they throw at me.
And what is it that you best control?
I mean, in terms of like my position on the field, communication is an easy one that like is a given at this point. So I find for myself as well, the more I'm communicating on the field, the more focused I remain in the game, and inevitably everything else kind of just falls into place for me. So I think, yeah, and just like Paige says, physically and mentally preparing myself. So just making sure that positioning is right and I'm winning my first challenge, making my first pass to set myself up for success throughout the game.
How does attitude play into this, Stacey? First of all, do you think that women's soccer is fundamentally any different in terms of people getting chippy on the field or, attitudes? I know that a lot of people think of men's professional soccer as kind of sometimes very arrogant, very entitled. How is it? Is it different? What do you sense from your players and just from this level of play with women's soccer?
Something special about this group is that there are no egos. They play for each other, and you can see that. And there's a lot of top performers in our team right now that are being put in the spotlight because they are big contributors to goals, to assists, shutouts as well. Georgia's a big part of that, as well as our goalkeeper. And so there's a lot of names on our team that are getting put in the spotlight, but it doesn't faze them. They know that they've just been trying to do their best every single game for the team, and they just so happen to be now leading in certain categories. But their main goal is to try and help the team achieve the outcome that we want to achieve and show their special qualities that they have to be able to do that. And so I just think that it's a group that have a great mindset. They're in it together. They're not individualistic. They want to help each other out and they pick each other up, and I think that that's a really unique team to be around. So yeah, the mindset is you have to be different. But, for them, they're all in it together.
Paige, I just want to ask you about women's sport in general, because obviously this is a time of a lot of change. Women's basketball, women's soccer, both getting a lot of attention that even 5 or 10 years ago they weren't receiving. And it's a little bit of a juggernaut. I mean, how does it feel just to be riding that wave, part of that cohort that is changing the way people think about women's sport, changing about the way people think about compensating women for the work that they do?
It's amazing. I think this league shows so much about where women's sports are going in this country. When I started college, there was no chance that I would play professional soccer in the United States. And, I finished up college and I'm now playing here. So this wasn't an opportunity that anyone had in my position just a couple of years ago. It's amazing. And I think across the board, women's sports are just catching on. I'm a huge women's basketball fan. Watching, the WNBA grow, their new CBA, how that's gone. I think all of that's amazing. And then obviously the new women's basketball team coming here. You just see it growing rapidly, and there's fan buy-in. So, the sky's the limit with women's sport in this country.
Definitely a lot of fan buy-in here in Jacksonville, and I know a lot of eyes will be on you. As we mentioned, Sporting Jacks, their last home game, the women's soccer team of the regular season, is against the Brooklyn FC. It's Sunday, May 3rd. Kickoff is at 5 o'clock at Hodges Stadium. And it's so nice to have you all on here today. Stacey Balaam, Georgia Brown, Paige Kenton, all of Sporting Jacks. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Up next, a Jacksonville-based artist with an outsider's eye. We meet the artist America Boslia ahead of his exhibition opening this week. Welcome back. A Jacksonville-based artist with a global or even universal vision is the focus of a new exhibition at MoCA Jacksonville. Here to tell us about it, we're joined by America Boslia. He's an associate professor at the University of Central Florida, where he teaches painting in the University School of Visual Arts and Design, and he is the artist behind the exhibit that opens this week. America, so nice to meet you.
Pleasure meeting you.
Thanks for coming on today. We're also joined by Amber Sesnick. She's the Director of Marketing Arts at UNF and MoCA Jacksonville. Amber, good morning.
Good morning.
So this show is called Outside Looking In. There are themes about being an outsider. Some of the work that you do traces your itinerant past. I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about your own personal history, because it is varied and fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Well, originally I'm from a place which doesn't even exist any longer, ex-Yugoslavia. And today's Bosnia. But I left in the midst of the 90s. My parents, they smuggled me out of there. And I was in Germany for a number of years, studying art. And then I got reunited with my family, and we came to the States in the late 1990s. We came to Jacksonville, and that became my base. I left shortly after. No, first I had to study some English, so I was taking ESL classes, and then I was able to enroll in at Ringling College. And after Ringling, I went to Montclair, and then ever since I've been a practicing artist and teaching at different places in New England, Northeast, and eventually 2018, I made my way back to Florida as I was offered a position at the UCF. So Jacksonville is home.
Yeah. And many places have been home. I mean,
Yes,
it sounds
that's
like
true.
you mentioned being born in Banja Luka, which is in today's Bosnia-Herzegovina. It is a place, though, that when you left was in the middle of a very devastating civil war.
Yeah.
And you talked about being reunited with your family. And so there was a period when you were in Germany that you were separated.
Actually, it was just me and my younger sister. So we were on our own for 5 years, and eventually the war ended. So our parents, they were able to get out of there and joined us, and it's a happy end story. Still, despite everything.
Landing in Jacksonville is no accident, because Jacksonville has had a very strong history of immigrant settlement, having people that move here that are assimilated here, that are groups that help them. And so there are a lot of immigrants that come to Jacksonville. Florida and this nation have kind of moved in a direction when it comes to being welcoming of migrants or immigrants. And I wonder if this place that you call home feels differently to you these days because of its changing perspective, or maybe less welcoming attitude towards people from elsewhere.
Well, for me, experience coming here and living all over, and now I kind of go back and forth still between U.S. and Europe. And my wife, she's Japanese, so we spend a lot of time in Japan, and so I get to see a lot of cultures and the idea of a fear of the unknown. I'm very, very familiar with that. So the world is not a black and white, picture. So I kind of try to see different angles and all the grays in between. So, and rather than imposing my opinion, observe it as an artist, as a painter. So I find that a bit more interesting.
Yeah. And your artwork really reflects that. You have the title of the show, as we mentioned, is Outside Looking In, but you do have this sort of outsider perspective. It gives you a little distance. You're painting things that are familiar, but also in a context that makes them look anew to us.
Mm-hmm.
And it is an interesting contrast. You use a lot of bright colors. You have almost a...
Sometimes.
Yes, sometimes. But in your Florida series, you have a lot of almost kind of whimsical topics and yet they have a dark side.
Well, Florida is home, and I like the idea of Tolstoy. His advice to a friend, a younger painter, the painter asking the great writer what to paint, and the writer responding, "If you want to be universal, start by painting your own village." And Florida is my village, one of several. And there is so much to look at, in terms of the visuals, it's quite beautiful. And then there's that complexity, as you say, darkness. There is the present, as vibrant as it is, and then there is the history and everything that entails. And I know as an artist, all you need to do is look. If you're paying attention, there's so much to see, to engage with. I don't ever need to leave my backyard for the rest of my life. I really mean that. And I will not run out of subject, not to mention Florida. So there is so much to engage with. And the more you look, the more you see. So I am working on multiple projects across the globe. But then again, if I were just to stay here, there is more than enough for many lifetimes.
I think it's so interesting that you mentioned that, because some of the work that you've done recently has involved toys that are your daughters that are almost just kind of propped in front of a backdrop of Orlando.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Some of them are Disney figures.
Yeah. Well, it's all part of the Florida series. And those, the ones you're mentioning, those are parts of our days 5-6 years ago. You all would recall the days of the pandemic. And I was sort of quarantined with my family in our place, so I didn't have access to people to paint them. Instead, I had my daughter sharing my studio, and so I would kind of bribe her with chocolate, whatever, so she would give me one of her toys. I would position those on the sill of the window with a view of a Florida flatlands, sort of extending into infinity, and I would observe that scene as a still life, yet they're quite animated, kind of resembling my earlier human characters. And they're loaded in all sorts of meanings, not to mention the fact that you are on this side of the bubble, there's a glass separating you from the outer world, and then you can see bugs, you can see flies, except they're not on the outside, they're on the inside. And context defines the narrative. And here you've got this bug, clearly referencing the bug, but the thing is, the bug is not out there. We cannot close the borders and save ourselves. The bug is always working from within. So we've got the bug here. So there's that. But then also, as a painter, I pay close attention. I learned from different artists of the past, such as Dutch masters, for example. And there's always that bug present. You've got those still lifes. You've got those memento moris. But then you've got a fly or two kind of as a reminder, how passing it all is, the ephemerality of it all. So there are a lot of reasons why I would embrace the bug. And as an artist, you paint your own experience. So there I am, experiencing something we all are going through, the pandemic, And in it, there is my personal experience as a father, as a human being, just going through it all, reflecting on it, because that's the only thing you have, your own village, as you're seeing it through the prism of your own emotional experience.
Amber, I want to bring you in to talk a little bit about this exhibit and how it is that, first of all, kind of Mocha's interest in bringing in Amir, the work that he's done, how you're choosing the pieces, because as we mentioned, there's this amazing Florida diary that he's done of all of these pieces that have a lot of local relevance, but he's also got these extraordinary pieces of the post-tsunami earthquake in Japan, studio kind of portraits of other artists' studios. So how do you choose what's going to be included, and how closely do you work with the artist to make that determination?
So our curatorial team, led by Ilva Rouse, really selects the works and the artists. I know she worked very closely with Amir to select the artworks that are in this exhibition, and to really look at the span of his career as an artist.
Mm-hmm. And so tell us a little bit about what this exhibition is. It's beginning this week, but it is going to be running through the summer. Is that right?
Yes. It opens this week. It runs through the summer. We're actually having our exhibition opening celebration this evening from 6 to 8 p.m., and we invite the community to come out and join us. From 6 to 9 p.m. We invite the community to come out and join us from 8 to 9 p.m. tonight to help celebrate the artist.
I want to ask you, Amir, about the other artists' studios that you have painted. You've painted your own studio, and that's, sometimes features some of those toys of your daughters as well. Sure. But you've had some other artists that you've focused on, and I'm curious, first of all, how you choose the artists that you would like to explore their interior work. Jackson Pollock is one that you've done.
Baltus,
Philip
Pearlstein,
yeah,
Hokusai.
And so, I mean, somebody like Baltus, has got work that is sometimes controversial, edgy portraiture that he does. Is there something in particular about that artist that you want to see how he worked, where he worked, or was it more just a matter of that studio was something you had available that you could check out?
No, it's more than that. It all started with my own studio as a graduate student at Montclair. And that was the place not only where I worked and painted, I was actually living illegally and sleeping on that floor and kind of trying to make sense of what I want to paint. And there it was, that studio itself, and me reading all sorts of things and Bachelard and the idea of a poetics of space and space as a container of countless memories. And there it was right there in front of me. And I started to observe that, not realizing at first what it was, but after painting a few, it became evident this is so much more than just architectural study of an interior. These are allegorical self-portraits, because everything in them, one way or another, is a portal into my inner world. I am revealed. I am butt naked, if you will, in those paintings. And I kind of like that. I mean, not being butt naked, but the idea of dealing with self without necessity of painting my own likeness. And so I continue. I work on all these different projects, but one I keep returning to are the studios. Has to do with my life, the fact that things at best are nomadic, at worst frenetic. So a way of exerting control is by painting those different chapters. However small the control, but still I keep returning to that subject. Some painters paint their faces, I paint my spaces. And that led me to this extension that you are mentioning, other artist studios, and it's a project titled Dirty Dozen. So there's a number of artists, one way or another, who influenced my own understanding of pictorial space. And some of those, it was a deliberate decision. Cases like Baltus, he's someone I grew up with, like sort of watching those weird paintings, these anomalies of 20th century, and me as a kid being affected by that. But then it was some 15 years ago, uncanny, long story. I'm not going to go into how I got to meet his widow and befriend the family after his passing, and them granting me access to his studio where he died and where no one goes into. And there I was in that studio asking the Countess, how can I do any justice to what I'm experiencing here, the immensity of this experience? And I remember something she said. She said, at that time I was living in New York City, and she said, well, you're doing all these photographs, all these observations, everything. You go back to your studio in New York, put it all aside, close your eyes, and think of time spent in Balta's studio and build it from there. So my interpretation of that, you go beyond the realm of Newtonian physics. You are in this dimension of divine, if you will. So gravity does not, you're not bound by it, nor are you bound by 2-3 point perspective. You are instead anywhere and everywhere all at once. So that was my approach to those, as it is to my own studios, kind of like this third eye vision. So you're everywhere and nowhere. You're observing it from multiple points of view, kind of stitching all those departure points into something which appears seamless. It's somewhat skewed, yet if you think about it, it's more accurate as it speaks to the experience of being in any of those spaces, rather than limiting yourself to photographic vision and dealing with 45, whatever the cone, and the world seen from a distance. These are more immersive.
Yeah.
It is about how to enter, how to be in that scene, not to look at it through a window, but be in that window. So again, a subject I keep returning to, and I can go on and for a long time discussing those.
Yeah. In addition to those, and we will see some of those at this exhibition at MoCA, there's this series that you did, as we alluded to, this post earthquake, post tsunami in Japan, a series that you did of the devastation there. And I believe you were there maybe the year after the incident happened.
I was there a week after it happened.
A week after it happened. Okay, but you went back several times after? Or?
Many times. Well, my wife, she is Japanese. And at that point, I was teaching at Bowdoin College in New England. And it happened. Actually, I was working with Balta's family and preparing to work on another project in Middle East, actually. But Japan happened. And artists are kind of impulsive creatures. So I was watching like everyone else on TV. It looked like a Hollywood spectacle or 24 news cycle, whatever, except it was real. Hundreds of miles of total devastation, tens of thousands of people losing their lives. And I asked a colleague to take over my classes. So I found myself flying to Japan, and with the help of my father-in-law, we got access to these areas even before the roads got cleared. So I was in town of Kesenuma, and by the time I got there, artists, they are intuitive creatures. It's like our superpower. So my thinking, if you want to call it thinking, was I would stay here for as long as it takes, and I would create a chronicle of the devastation, cleanup that ensued, eventually a reconstruction of the community. 100 views of Kesenuma, a nod to Hokusai's 37 views of Mount Fuji, another artist from whom I learned a lot about pictorial space, maybe more so than I learned from Europeans and Americans. So a lot of reasons why. My wife from there, me saying I care, one way I know how, which is with brush. That's my weapon of choice. And not to mention my past, me growing up in a war-torn country, so I guess there are some parallels, a different kind of devastation. Nevertheless, it's a loss of human life, and as an artist, you want to engage, you empathize.
And just briefly, I want to talk about the parallels, again, to devastation, because some of the topics that you focus on in Florida, for instance, are development or environmental degradation. Also something that you explore sometimes, again, in very vibrant colors.
Well, the world is such a beautiful place. It's incredible. If you're paying any attention. In Florida, a place I deeply love, the more you look, the more you see. Not to mention the springs, like Ichitakni and all those places. But then, if you look around, you notice the suburbia, which never ceases to go on expanding, shopping malls metastasizing throughout the flatlands, and encroaching upon these oasis-like environments. So again, my job is not to preach, not to offer solutions, because I've got none. I'm a lowly painter. And at the same time, I'm a poet. I'm a visual poet. It's about engaging, making sense through the medium of painting. And yes, again, looks like we are out of time, but Otherwise, I can go on for a very long time discussing those paintings.
I would love to hear you talk about it too, but it is a pleasure having you on. Amir Kabazlia, his work opens tonight, Thursday, April 30th. It runs through September 20th at Mocha Jack's. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Anne.
All
I
right.
really appreciate it.
Amber Sosnick, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right, up next, nearly 50-year-old event honors changemakers shaping Jacksonville's artistic and cultural spaces.
Wolfson Children's Hospital, where generations of families have found hope. Because it's here at Wolfson Children's where answers are found, odds are beaten, and comebacks begin every day. Wolfson Children's, always here. Visit wolfsonchildrens.com. Terrell Hogan Law.
I'm Wayne Hogan. Highway, hospital, home, work. Where injuries happen can make a difference in the law and the outcome.
More at terrellhoganlaw.com.
President Trump is directing the Justice Department to treat beliefs like anti-Americanism or anti-Christianity akin to domestic terrorism. Beliefs are not illegal, but the president is trying to make certain thoughts a crime.
It's very much in the interest of Trump and the far right to blur the lines between journalist and researcher and activist and quote-unquote terrorist.
That's on the next On Point.
Today at 11 on WJCT News 89.9.
American farmers are getting stretched thin. Rising costs, tariffs, and a faltering farm bill add spiking fuel and fertilizer prices from the war in Iran, and the people who grow America's food are getting hit from all directions. The political coalition that's fueled farm policy for decades is falling apart. What it all means for farmers and our political system next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. From the generosity of local duo Tedeschi Trucks to the hip-hop innovations of Willie Evans Jr., this year's Cultural Council Awards showcase the depth and diversity of Northeast Florida's cultural landscape. Here to tell us about the awards, we are joined by one of those winners, celebrating the people and the culture of this city, Darren Daly. He's president and artistic director of the Jacksonville Children's Chorus, and as we said, one of this year's recipients. Darren, welcome. Congratulations.
Thank you for having me.
We're also joined by the group's executive director, Diana Donovan of the Cultural Council. Great to have you back, Diana.
Thank you for having us.
Well, it's our pleasure, of course. So the Cultural Council does this awards every year. They host it, and it's the group's largest annual fundraiser. So it is an opportunity to celebrate, but also to kind of maintain the group's vibrancy and its ability to continue to serve.
Absolutely. And as a nonprofit, 92 cents on every dollar goes back to the community. So our goal is to provide a platform for community nominated and community selected champions in the sector. And Darren is a great example of the community saying, we have seen his work, we have experienced how rich it makes our lives, and also the ROI that comes from having children sing at the Vatican. You know, like he's a great example of what happens when Jacksonville can not just thrive internally, but have that talent shine on a national and international platform.
Darren, we were talking a little before the program, like this isn't even your first pope. You've done this before.
Yeah.
So the choir has had a lot of ability to travel. Some of that relies on community support. Some of that relies on institutions like the Cultural Council to
Very
make
much
sure
so.
that this community is supportive of the arts.
Yeah, without those kinds of resources, investments, we would not have grown over the last 20 years from a fledgling nonprofit of a budget of $150,000 to one that's $1.4 million. I mean, it's that kind of support, and not just the financial support, but the community support, which is one of the things I'm really excited about this particular award, because it's an advocacy award. And one of the things Bob White really infused in many of us in the nonprofit or performing arts world or art world is that we need one another and we need deep relationships. And it's not just about the dollars.
Remind us who Bob White is, because this award that you're receiving is in his name and in his honor. He's obviously the former executive director of the Cultural Council, but his roots in theater and performance in Jacksonville run really deep.
And I think one of the things that we always are reminded of is like we stand on the shoulders of greatness, right? There have been so many people who have held this role before me that have put their own flair, style, intentionality, and success component to it. And I think Bob coming back is really special because not only do we have an award named after him, but we also have his sister being honored as art educator, completely unrelated because it's community nominated and selected. So we'll have a great connection there of a full circle moment for the Cultural Council and for the people he's been helping to support.
And we mentioned, the Bob White Award for Advocacy, Darren, is going to you. But we mentioned Tedeschi Trucks. That's the Art of Giving Award to Derek Trucks and Susan Tedeschi, who are incredible artists from this area.
Absolutely.
Art Innovator Willie Evans Jr. we mentioned. And Art Educator Doris McNeil, which is another, essential role, teaching, providing an opportunity for young people coming up to learn about all kinds of art.
And when we look at arts and culture as a sector, like we often think about the experiences we have on a Friday night or a Saturday night, or we think about, economic, activation, igniting funding. But we also have this component of like children being our next generation, right? How many people who are listening right now, you want your children to grow up to eat, stay, and play here. We want them to be successful. We want them to have jobs. And the skills acquired through leadership in the arts and cultural realm are incredible. And we have organizations like Jacksonville Children's Chorus and JAMS, and we have people on the front lines working with these children saying, not only do you matter, but the voice and the story you're telling is helping to echo and create a quality of life and a community that we get to celebrate. And it's beautiful to see. It's beautiful to see that people see and recognize on a deeper level that this matters, but also on a practical level, right? Like these people grow up and they become CEOs and they lead things and they decide things. And,
they join your staff.
And they join your staff.
We have 5 alumni who are on our full-time staff of 9.
I love that.
Children's voices are also just metaphorically powerful too, Darren. It sort of really does speak to this next generation and giving them tools to be heard, giving them tools to express themselves. Also just, a place where they're learning things through travel. What an extraordinary...
Through travel and through the art itself. We've commissioned over 80 different choral works and selecting texts to put in the mouths of these young performers who can sing something in a profound way that adults, there's an innocence that comes with youth that really touches the listener in a very, very different way. And it's one of those things that has opened the doors for the children's chorus to receive national recognition. And really, I used to say we're on the path to being a world-class choir, and we're a world-class choir. We get invited regularly to perform internationally. We just got back from Greece and Turkey in July. Then in December and January, we were in Italy, where we got to sing for Pope Leo. And then we were in Assisi, Italy, and we sang a liturgy there. And the head liturgist came up to us and says, well, this year it's the 800th anniversary of the founding of the Franciscan order. Can you come back in October and open the concert?
Okay.
Wow. I wish I could figure that out, but those are the types of things that the Cultural Council funding helps make happen for young people.
Well, the Cultural Council event, it's a great party, but it's also a fundraiser. It's the 49th Annual Arts Awards. It's Saturday, May 9th from 6:30 to 10 at Decca Live on Bay Street. We've got a link on our website. Diana Donovan, Darren Daly, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right, and thank you for listening. Please join us tomorrow when we discuss the week's top headlines with our media roundtable, including how the state's new congressional district
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com. Alchemy Yoga and Wellness, opening this summer in Ortega, offers a balanced approach to movement and recovery. Services include yoga, infrared sauna, cold plunge, massage, and facials in one location. More information at alchemyjax.yoga.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and